So I want you to imagine waking up in just this absolute paradise. Like you are entirely at peace, bathed in this beautiful, warm light.
Sounds pretty good so far.
Right. But then you look around and you realize you have absolutely no memory of the spouse you spent 50 years with.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that takes a dark turn.
It really does. Like you have zero recollection of the children you raised or, the friends who stood by you through thick and thin, the parents who loved you.
Right.
Honestly, it sounds less like heaven and a lot more like some kind of, I don't know, psychological tragedy.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like a terrifying kind of amnesia. Because you're describing this scenario where reaching an eternal paradise requires sacrificing the very connections that made your life meaningful in the first place.
Exactly. And welcome to today's deep dive, everyone. We are tackling a question today that I think almost every single one of us holds quietly, maybe even anxiously.
Oh, absolutely. It's a universal anxiety.
It is. And the question is simply this. When we reach heaven, will we remember the people we loved on earth? We're pulling apart this very short but incredibly profound piece of source material today that tackles this head on.
It's a very dense text.
Super dense. So the mission for this deep dive is to look at how this idea of the afterlife handles human identity, our memories, and really the ultimate nature of love itself.
And, the anxiety you just described, that fear of eternal amnesia, that is the perfect place to start.
Yeah.
Yeah, because underlying the question of whether we will remember our family is this much deeper, more existential dread. It's the fear that crossing the threshold into the afterlife means, losing who we are.
Losing ourselves, that is the core of it right there, because we are not just these isolated minds floating in a vacuum.
We're highly relational creatures.
Exactly. I know who I am because of the people I love. Like my sense of humor, right? It was built by bantering with my best friend.
Right, it didn't just appear out of nowhere.
No. And my patience was forged by navigating really difficult times with my family. My empathy comes from the grief I've shared with the people closest to me. So if you just sever all of those interpersonal threads...
You don't just lose the people.
No, the entire fabric of my identity unravels. I would literally cease to be me.
That's a great way to put it. It's like a tapestry.
Yes, exactly. Think of human identity like this beautifully complex tapestry. If you were to just, pull out all the red threads, let's say the red threads are your earthly relationships and memories.
Okay, pulling out the red threads.
If you do that, the whole picture just falls apart. You're left with a pile of loose string.
Right, which is why the foundational premise we are exploring today is so crucial. The argument laid out in our source text here is that God does not erase who we are.
Okay, so no factory reset.
Exactly. The afterlife is not presented as a blank slate, or, like you said, a factory reset of the human soul. The preservation of your identity is deeply, inextricably tied to the preservation of the memories that shaped you.
The memories that shaped us. That specific concept really stands out to me in the text.
It's a very deliberate word choice.
It is, because a shape isn't something you just speak into existence instantly. A shape is carved over time. It's formed by friction, by joy, by presence.
It implies a process, a long, often messy process.
Right. And if we are formed by the friction and the joy of earthly relationships, then logically you can't have the shaped object without keeping the mold that shaped it.
The mold being the relationships themselves.
Yes. So if a divine being is preserving your unique identity, fundamentally that requires preserving your memories of your loved ones. Memory preservation isn't treated as some, bonus feature of heaven.
Like an upgrade package.
Right? Like premium heaven. No, it is a structural necessity for maintaining your existence as a unique individual.
And notice the necessary conclusion there. If you carry your unique shaped identity forward, you are carrying the entire history of your interpersonal connections with you. So heaven, in this framework, is emphatically not a place where we lose our identity or our love.
Which is a huge relief. But, establishing that we keep our memories immediately introduces this massive psychological complication.
It introduces a major paradox, yeah.
It does. And honestly, I have to push back here on behalf of you, the listener, because the simplicity of just keeping our memories feels a little too tidy.
Tidy how?
Well, human memories are rarely just purely happy.
Right.
They are messy, they are complicated. The memories that shape us the most are often deeply tied to grief, to arguments, to profound loss.
The problem of bringing earthly pain into a perfect space.
Yes. let's really sit with this because I am struggling to see how this works in practice. The claim we are looking at says we will know and recognize those we love, but that this recognition will exist entirely without the pain, sadness, and brokenness we experience today.
Right. That's the explicit promise.
But think about the reality of a deep earthly relationship. What about a parent who sat by a child's hospital bed? The agony of that memory is completely inseparable from their fierce love for that child.
It's totally intertwined.
Exactly. Or, like, if I love my spouse, that love is built on the times we struggled together, the times we actually hurt each other and had to do the hard work of forgiving.
The friction you mentioned earlier.
Right. So if you just delete the memory of the brokenness or the grief, doesn't that mean we are only keeping this sanitized, highlight reel version of our past?
Like an Instagram version of your life.
Yes, a fake version. How do we stay human without our scars? It kind of feels like removing the pain would essentially lobotomize the relationship.
That tension is arguably the most difficult part of this entire concept to grasp. I completely get why you're pushing back. But if we look really closely at the framework being presented in the source, it doesn't suggest that the past is deleted.
It doesn't.
No. It doesn't claim the memory of a difficult event is just wiped from your hard drive. It makes a very specific distinction. It says the pain, sadness, and brokenness are what we will be without.
Okay, I hear the distinction, but I need you to explain the mechanics of that. Because how on earth do you remember sitting in a hospital room or fighting through a bitter divorce without feeling the sadness of it?
Okay, let's approach it through the lens of how human psychology actually already attempts to process trauma here on Earth, specifically through therapies like EMDR.
Oh, eye movement desensitization.
Right.
Right.
Exactly. When someone experiences a severely traumatic event, that memory gets trapped in the brain alongside the intense neurological sting of the original fear and pain.
Like the body keeps the score kind of thing?
Yes. So when they recall the event, their body reacts as if they're literally still in danger. Their heart races, they sweat. The goal of profound trauma therapy isn't to make the patient forget what happened to them. That would be erasure.
The goal is to help them remember it without their nervous system going into absolute overdrive.
Precisely. Through healing, a person can eventually look back at the most agonizing moments of their life and remember the facts perfectly. But the agonizing sting, the brokenness of the memory, is neutralized.
Oh.
They can recall it from a place of absolute safety and resolution.
So the memory stays, but the emotional poison is extracted.
Exactly. What this concept of heaven proposes is basically that principle, but executed perfectly. You don't lose the memory of the hospital room because, like you said, that memory forged your love, but you remember it entirely stripped of the trauma, the fear, and the venom.
The brokenness is removed from the memory, leaving only the profound connection that the struggle produced.
Think about reading an old journal entry from, say, a time when you were in middle school and you were experiencing your very first heartbreak.
Oh man, the drama.
Right.
Yeah.
At the time, that pain was literally world-ending. It was all-consuming. But when you read it decades later, assuming you're happily married and secure in your life, you don't feel the devastation anymore.
No, not at all. You feel a sort of gentle appreciation for how much you cared.
Exactly. And you can see how that experience led you to where you are now. The memory is fully intact, but the sorrow has been neutralized by your current state of security.
That reframes it beautifully. It's not an erasure at all. It's an evolution of how we perceive our own history.
An evolution, yes.
But I mean, to achieve that total neutralization of pain, something fundamental about our reality has to shift. Which brings us to the specific ancient promise that anchors this entire idea in our source text.
Yes, the text points directly to a vision from the book of Revelation, Revelation 21.4.
Let's read the exact quote, because the imagery here is incredibly deliberate. The source says, "He will wipe every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death or mourning or crying or pain."
It is arguably one of the most culturally pervasive descriptions of an afterlife in human history. Even people who don't know the Bible often know that phrase.
Oh, absolutely. And what fascinates me is the sheer intimacy of the opening phrase.
The wiping of the tear.
Yes. Because when you try to picture the creator of the universe dealing with all of human suffering, it would make sense for the description to be this massive cosmic decree, like a booming voice thundering from the clouds.
Right, like, let all pain cease to exist.
Exactly. A structural command to the entire universe.
A sweeping, impersonal eradication.
Yes. But instead, the mechanism of comfort is almost shockingly physical. He will wipe every tear from their eyes. I mean, just think about the mechanics of wiping a tear from someone's face.
You have to be close.
You cannot do that from a distance. You have to be standing right in front of them. You have to be looking directly into their eyes. It's an action of immense tenderness.
Like a parent leaning down to comfort a child who just scraped their knee.
Exactly. It implies that God doesn't just hit this cosmic reset button to make everyone instantly happy. He actually meets the individual in their specific personal grief at the exact moment they arrive.
And notice the progression of the imagery there in the verse, because it starts with that deeply personal, individual comfort you just described. It addresses the microcosm of human suffering, the specific personal grief a person is holding.
Right.
But then the vision immediately expands outward.
From the personal tear being wiped to, quote, no more death or mourning or crying or pain.
Right, so it shifts from the intimate treatment of a symptom to the absolute structural eradication of the disease itself. It attacks the root causes of why we suffer in relationships to begin with.
Wow. Okay, let's unpack that. The root causes.
And think about how every single earthly relationship is fundamentally shadowed by the ticking clock of mortality.
A fear of loss.
Yes. Even in our happiest moments, there is a subconscious awareness that this will eventually end. Someone will leave or someone will pass away. Death is the ultimate separation.
And mourning is the internal emotional fallout of that separation.
Exactly. Crying is the physical manifestation of it. Pain is the neurological and spiritual suffering.
So if death, mourning, and pain are structurally prohibited from existing in this space, then the very atmosphere of heaven basically dismantles the conditions that create grief.
Which means the way we experience love has to fundamentally change.
How so?
Well, if the threat of loss is completely permanently removed, love is no longer defensive. It is no longer anxious. You aren't holding on tight out of fear.
Oh, that makes so much sense, which perfectly aligns with the next major claim we are exploring from the source. This idea that in heaven, our love will be, quote, made perfect.
Made perfect, yes.
The text tells us that earthly relationships are precious gifts, but the love we share here is only a glimpse of the perfect love we will experience in his presence.
A glimpse.
Right. And trying to visualize what made perfect actually means is difficult because earthly love is the only baseline we have.
It's all we know.
It's all we know. But consider this analogy. Imagine you are standing in a totally dark, cavernous room looking at a masterpiece painting. Let's say it's a Rembrandt.
Okay, Rembrandt in the dark.
But the only light you have is this cheap, flickering flashlight.
So you can only see tiny fragments of the canvas at a time.
Right. You shine the light and you see a beautiful splash of blue, or maybe a masterfully painted hand, or a striking face. It is undeniably beautiful, and you can appreciate the genius of it, but your perception is incredibly limited.
You're missing the context of the whole piece.
Exactly. And the darkness around that beam of light represents our human ego, our insecurities, our misunderstandings, the constant fear of losing the person. We only get a limited, flickering view of the people we love because our own brokenness gets in the way.
That's a profound way to look at it.
So stepping into the afterlife, according to this framework, is like someone finally turning on the floodlights in that gallery.
The masterpiece itself hasn't changed.
The person you love hasn't changed. The relationship is the exact same canvas. But your ability to experience it, to see the whole picture simultaneously without the darkness of human limitation restricting your view, that has been completely transformed.
The flickering flashlight was the glimpse.
And the fully lit gallery is the perfection.
The gallery analogy works beautifully, because it highlights that perfection isn't about changing the object of your love into something unrecognizable.
Right, they don't become some glowing, faceless angel.
Exactly. It's about removing the impediments to your perception. And if we carry that forward, the framework offers another profound reason why we can look back on our earthly lives without sorrow.
Which is what?
The text explicitly says we will have the peace of knowing that God has, quote, restored everything.
Restored everything. That word restored, it carries so much weight.
It completely alters our relationship with time and regret.
How do you mean?
Think about how we consume stories. When you are halfway through a brilliant novel and a character you love experiences a devastating tragedy, you feel sorrow.
Yeah, the middle of the story is agonizing.
It is. You're in the thick of it.
Uh-huh.
But when you finally reach the end of the book and you see how the author wove that specific tragedy into a beautiful, triumphant conclusion.
How it was totally necessary for the character's ultimate redemption.
Exactly. When you see that, your perception of that past event shifts. You don't forget the tragedy,
Right.
but you no longer feel the despair you felt in Chapter 5 because you are currently standing in the resolution of the final chapter.
You possess the full picture. You see the architecture of the narrative.
Exactly. The promise here is that in the afterlife, you are standing at the ultimate resolution. You possess the peace of knowing that everything has been restored.
Wow.
You can look back on the earthly struggles, the lost years, the painful separations, not with sorrow, but with this settled, profound peace of seeing how the story was ultimately resolved by perfect love.
The ending retroactively heals the pain of the journey.
That's exactly it. The ending heals the journey.
Which brings us full circle to definitively answer the question that kicked off this entire exploration. When we reach heaven, will we remember the people we loved on earth?
The conclusion presented in our source is absolutely unequivocal.
Heaven is absolutely not about forgetting the people we love. It is about being reunited in a place where love never ends.
A place where love never ends.
And I want to just pause here and speak directly to you, the listener, for a moment. Because if you clicked on this deep dive because you are currently missing someone, or because you just carry a quiet anxiety about what happens next, consider the profound reassurance this framework is designed to offer.
It's a very comforting framework.
It really is. What this is ultimately saying is that the fierce, complicated, deep love you feel for your family or your friends right now, it is not just a temporary biological mechanism meant to help us survive a few decades on a spinning rock.
It's not just evolutionary glue.
No, it is a valid, eternal thread. The connection you have forged here does not get severed and tossed aside when you cross the finish line. It is carried over. It is essential to who you are.
It really elevates the mundane reality of our daily lives, doesn't it? By explicitly calling earthly relationships precious gifts, it bridges the gap between the physical world and the eternal one. It gives immense, lasting value to the present moment.
Right. It doesn't diminish the present by saying, oh, Earth is just a waiting room. Nothing here really matters.
Quite the opposite. It suggests that these relationships are the actual raw materials of eternity. They are a continuum. The love starts here, in the dark room with the flickering flashlight, and it culminates there, in the fully lit gallery, in a grand reunion where it is fully healed and fully realized.
We keep our identities, we keep the memories that shaped us,
The pain is intimately wiped away.
and we step into a restored, perfected connection, a continuum of love. That is just a brilliant way to synthesize all of this. The anxiety of eternal amnesia is completely replaced by the promise of eternal clarity.
Eternal clarity, yes.
This has been a genuinely moving exploration. Thank you so much for walking through this with me and really helping to pull apart the layers of these incredibly dense promises.
Oh, it's been a privilege to unpack it with you. This psychological and spiritual depth within these few concepts is just endlessly fascinating to me.
It really is. And to you, the listener, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. But before you go, I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over, something to explore on your own that builds on what we've discussed today.
Always good to leave with a question.
Definitely. So we've established this idea that our earthly relationships are just a glimpse of the perfect love we will experience later. But if that is true, how might viewing your current friends and family as eternal, precious gifts change the way you treat them today?
Oh, that's challenging.
Right. If the love you share with your spouse, your child, or your parents is an eternal thread that will never actually end, how does that shift the way you forgive them?
Yeah.
How does it change the patience you show them in a frustrating moment? If this is just the beginning of a love that goes on forever, how does that change the way you love them right now, right here on Earth? Something to think about. Until next time.